Ethan Vale was once the kind of man people envied. He owned Vale Tech, a rising software company worth millions. He drove cars that cost more than houses. He lived in a penthouse above the city, surrounded by glass walls, expensive whiskey, and silence. But 10 years earlier, he had been nothing. Just a tired young husband with unpaid bills, a small rented apartment, and a wife who believed in him more than he believed in himself. Clara Vale worked 2 jobs while Ethan built his startup from their kitchen table. She cooked cheap dinners, smiled through exhaustion, and told him every night, "One day, you'll make it." And he did. But success changed him. At first, it was small things. He missed dinner, then anniversaries, then her calls. Then he stopped saying thank you. When Clara asked for time, he gave her money. When she asked for love, he gave her silence. When she cried, he called her dramatic. And when investors, fame, and a beautiful assistant named Vanessa came into his life, Ethan made the worst mistake of all. He believed Clara was holding him back. Their divorce was ugly. Ethan signed the papers without looking at her. Clara stood across from him, eyes red, voice shaking. "Was I ever enough for you?" Ethan said nothing. That silence was his answer. She left, and Ethan won everything except the only thing that mattered. For 10 years, he became richer, colder, and lonelier. Then came betrayal. His trusted partner, Marcus Dane, stole company funds, destroyed Ethan's reputation, framed him for fraud, and pushed him out of his own company. Vanessa disappeared with Marcus. The board abandoned him. The media called him a criminal. And Clara had rebuilt her life without him. On the night Ethan died, he saw her on television. She was giving an interview as the founder of a charity for abandoned women and children. She looked older, stronger, beautiful. And beside her stood a man Ethan recognized. Daniel Cross, a lawyer, calm, respectable. The host asked Clara, "Do you believe in second chances?" Clara smiled softly. "Yes, but not everyone deserves one." Ethan turned off the TV. That night, he collapsed. No one came, no one knew. And as darkness swallowed him, Ethan whispered, "God, if I could go back, I'd do it differently." Then everything went black. Ethan woke up gasping. He sat up so fast he nearly fell off the couch. The room smelled like instant coffee, old wood, and rain. Not hospital chemicals, not expensive leather, not loneliness. He looked around. Their old apartment, small kitchen, cracked ceiling, a cheap sofa, 2 mugs in the sink, and on the wall, a calendar. April 26, 2016. Ethan stumbled to the mirror. He was 30 again. No gray hair, no scar from the accident, no tired, hollow eyes. His hands shook. "No." From the bedroom came a sleepy voice. "Ethan, are you okay?" Clara appeared at the doorway wearing one of his old shirts. Her hair was messy. Her face was soft with sleep. Alive, young, still his wife. Ethan stared at her like a starving man seeing food. Then he broke. He rushed to her and wrapped his arms around her. Clara froze. "Ethan?" He held her tighter. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "For what?" "For everything." She pulled back, confused. "You're scaring me." Ethan looked at her face. In his first life, this was the last week before everything began to rot. Tomorrow, he would meet Marcus at a startup event. In 2 months, Marcus would become his partner. In 1 year, Vanessa would enter his company. In 3 years, Clara would miscarry alone because Ethan was at a business dinner. In 4 years, Clara would leave. In 10 years, Ethan would die alone. But not this time. This time he knew every trap, every betrayal, every mistake, and he would fix it all, at any cost. That morning, Clara made breakfast quietly. She kept glancing at Ethan. Normally, he would be glued to his laptop, barely speaking. But today, he sat at the table and watched her, like she was a miracle. Finally, Clara put down the pan. Okay, what did you do? Ethan blinked. What? You're acting guilty. He smiled sadly. Maybe I am. She crossed her arms. Did your pitch fail? In his first life, yes. That day he had gone to meet an investor named Richard Lowell. Ethan had been arrogant, underprepared, and desperate. Richard rejected him. That rejection pushed Ethan toward Marcus. But now Ethan remembered everything. Richard Lowell had not rejected the idea. He had rejected Ethan's attitude. Ethan stood and walked to Clara. I have a meeting today. I know. I want you to come with me. Me? Yes. You never let me come to business meetings. That was my mistake. She looked away. Ethan, don't do this. Do what? Act sweet for one day and then go back to ignoring me. The words hit him harder than any insult. He gently took her hand. I know I haven't been a good husband. Her eyes widened. I know you're tired. I know you feel alone. I know you've been carrying us while I chase dreams and pretend that makes me special. Clara's lips parted. I can't change yesterday, Ethan said, but starting today, I want to become someone you can trust again. Clara studied him for a long moment. Then she whispered, Who are you? Ethan smiled faintly. Someone who almost lost you. Richard Lowell was exactly as Ethan remembered. Gray suit, sharp eyes, no patience for fools. Ethan entered the conference room with Clara beside him. Richard looked surprised. You brought your wife? Ethan nodded. She's the reason this company exists. Clara glanced at him. Richard leaned back. Interesting. Begin. In his first life, Ethan had talked about domination, disruption, market control. This time, he talked about service. He explained how his software could help small businesses manage inventory without expensive systems. He showed revised projections, realistic costs, and customer pain points. Then he turned to Clara. She works at a local supplier. She helped me understand what small businesses actually need. Richard looked at Clara. Vale, is that true? Clara sat straighter. Yes. Most systems are too complex. Small owners don't need 1,000 features. They need something simple, affordable, and reliable. Richard's expression changed. For the first time, he listened. At the end, Richard closed the folder. This is better than I expected. Ethan waited. I'll invest. Clara gasped. Ethan closed his eyes. The first domino had changed. Outside the building, Clara stared at him. You did it. No, Ethan said. We did it. She looked at him, suspicious but touched. For the first time in years, Ethan saw hope in her eyes, and it terrified him, because hope was fragile, and he knew how easily he could destroy it. That evening, Ethan received the email he had expected. Marcus Dane, saw your pitch today. Impressive. We should talk. Ethan's blood went cold. Marcus. The man who would smile, flatter him, become his closest friend, and eventually ruin him. In his first life, Ethan had admired Marcus. Marcus was charming, fearless, and ruthless. Everything young Ethan wanted to be. But now Ethan knew better. A snake did not become harmless just because you recognized its skin. Ethan deleted the email. Then another came. You'll regret ignoring me. Ethan stared at the screen. So Marcus had noticed him earlier than expected. Good. Let him come. This time, Ethan would not be prey. Ethan thought saving his company would be hard. He was wrong. Winning Clara back was harder. Because Clara was not foolish. She did not melt because he bought flowers. She did not forget years of loneliness because he apologized once. So Ethan did something he had never done before. He showed up. When she worked late, he brought dinner. When she spoke, he listened. When she cried from stress, he did not fix, lecture, or dismiss. He held her. One night, Clara found him washing dishes. She stood in the doorway. You hate dishes. I hated being useful. She laughed despite herself. Another night she woke at 2 a.m. and found him writing in a notebook. What is that? Ethan hesitated. A list. Of what? Things I did wrong. She took the notebook. The first page read, I made her feel invisible. I confused providing with loving. I let pride become my language. I never asked what she needed. I made her grieve alone. Clara's hands trembled. What does number 5 mean? Ethan froze. The miscarriage. It had not happened yet. He gently took the notebook back. It means I'm afraid of failing you when you need me most. Clara stared at him. You talk like someone who already has. Ethan whispered, maybe in my heart, I have. 6 months passed. Valetech grew. Richard introduced Ethan to clients. Clara helped with operations. Ethan hired carefully, avoiding the people who had betrayed him in his first life. Then one afternoon, a resume landed on his desk. Vanessa Reed. Ethan's jaw tightened. In his first life, Vanessa had been his assistant. Beautiful, efficient, ambitious. She had fed his ego, encouraged his distance from Clara, and later helped Marcus steal company secrets. Ethan could have thrown the resume away. Instead, he invited her in. Vanessa entered with the same confident smile. Mr. Vale, I've followed your work. I think I can be valuable to you. Ethan leaned back. I'm sure you can. She smiled wider. But not here. Her smile faded. Excuse me? I know your previous employer accused you of leaking internal documents. Vanessa went pale. That was never proven. No, but it was true. Her eyes sharpened. Careful, Mr. Vale. Ethan smiled coldly. You should be careful. Tell Marcus Dane that if he wants my company, he'll need better bait. For the first time, Vanessa's mask cracked. Then she stood. You think you're untouchable? No, Ethan said. That's why I protect what matters. After she left, Ethan called Richard. We have a problem. Then said, You expected this. Ethan looked out the window. Yes. How? Ethan answered quietly, because men like Marcus always come for what they think they deserve. Ethan's changes were too precise, too strange. He avoided disasters before they happened. He invested in companies before they exploded. He refused partnerships before scandals broke. He knew people's secrets before meeting them. Clara noticed. One night after Ethan warned her not to take a certain bus route, that same bus crashed. She came home pale. How did you know? Ethan said nothing. Ethan. He looked at her. She whispered, What is happening to you? He could lie. In his first life lying had been easy, but this Clara deserved truth, even impossible truth. So Ethan told her everything. The divorce, the miscarriage, Marcus, Vanessa, his death, waking up in the past. When he finished, Clara was crying. Not loudly, silently, the kind of crying that hurt more. So in that life, she said, I left you? Yes. Did I hate you? Ethan swallowed. I think you tried not to. She turned away. And our child? I wasn't there. Clara covered her mouth. I am so sorry, he said. I know it hasn't happened in this life, but I remember it. I remember your face. I remember choosing a meeting over you. I remember becoming the kind of man who deserved to lose everything. Clara walked to the window. For a long time she said nothing. Then she asked, Are you trying to love me or erase your guilt? Ethan had no answer, because at first maybe it had been guilt, fear, regret. But now, he loved her with the terror of a man who knew exactly what loss tasted like. I don't want to own you, he said. I don't want to force destiny. If one day you still choose to leave, I won't stop you. Clara turned. But I will spend every day becoming someone who would never make you feel alone again. Clara wiped her tears. I don't know if I believe you. I know, but I want to. That was enough. For now, it was enough. Marcus stopped hiding. First came rumors. Articles appeared online accusing Valetech of fraud. Then a client canceled. Then Richard received anonymous documents suggesting Ethan had stolen code. But Ethan was ready. He had records, witnesses, backups. Every trap Marcus set, Ethan disarmed. But Marcus was not just attacking the company. He began attacking Clara. One evening, Clara found an envelope at her workplace. Inside were photos of Ethan with Vanessa from the first timeline. Impossible photos. Except Ethan realized they were fake. Marcus had recreated them. The note read, "Men like him don't change. Ask yourself what he's hiding." Clara showed Ethan the envelope. "Is this her?" "Yes." "Did you love her?" "No." "Did you betray me with her?" Ethan closed his eyes. "In my first life, emotionally, yes. Physically, almost. But betrayal begins before touch." Clara's face tightened. "I hate that answer." "I know, but I respect it." Ethan reached for her hand. She did not take it. Not yet. That night, Ethan sat alone in the living room. Clara came out after midnight. "I'm angry," she said. "You have every right. I'm angry at a version of you I never met. I know. And I'm angry that I love the version standing here." Ethan looked up. Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Don't make me regret it." He stood slowly. "I won't." She finally stepped into his arms. And for the first time since returning, Ethan allowed himself to believe the future could truly change. The day Clara told Ethan she was pregnant, his knees nearly gave out. She held the test with shaking hands. "I'm scared," she whispered. Ethan took her face gently. "I'm here. No meetings? No meetings. No excuses? No excuses." This time, Ethan changed everything. He moved important calls, delegated work, built a leadership team. Every appointment he attended. Every craving he memorized. Every fear he listened to. But fate is cruel. On the same date Clara had miscarried in the first life, Ethan received a call. Richard's voice was urgent. "Marcus filed an emergency injunction. If you don't appear in court today, Valetech could be frozen." Ethan looked at Clara. She was on the couch, one hand on her stomach. In the first life, he had chosen the meeting. This time, he turned off his phone. Clara noticed. "What happened?" she asked. "Nothing more important than you," he replied. Hours later, pain struck. Ethan carried her to the car. At the hospital, doctors rushed her inside. Ethan stayed. He held her hand. He prayed. He begged. And this time, when Clara opened her eyes, the doctor smiled. "The baby is safe." Ethan collapsed into tears. "You stayed." "I'll always stay." Months later, their daughter was born. They named her Hope. Ethan had regained his company. He had protected his child. He had won back Clara's trust. But Marcus still existed. And men like Marcus do not stop because they lose. They burn everything before admitting defeat. Marcus arranged one final trap. He kidnapped Clara and Hope. Ethan received a video. Clara tied to a chair, Hope crying in her arms. Marcus stood behind them. "You took everything from me, Ethan." Ethan's voice turned deadly calm. "You touched my family." Marcus smiled. "Come alone." Ethan knew the warehouse. In his first life, it was where Marcus had hidden stolen servers before fleeing the country. This time, Ethan called the police. Then he called Richard. Then he opened a locked drawer and took out every file he had gathered for 10 years that had not yet happened. Marcus's accounts, shell companies, fake passports, blackmail records. The final war had begun. At the warehouse, Marcus laughed when Ethan entered. "No police?" Ethan looked at Clara. She shook her head, terrified. Hope cried softly. Ethan raised his hands. "Let them go. You always thought you were better than me." "No," Ethan said. "I was worse. That's why I recognize you." Marcus frowned. Ethan stepped closer. You think power means taking, using, controlling. I thought that too. Marcus screamed. Shut up. But power is restraint. Love is restraint. A real man doesn't destroy what refuses to belong to him. Marcus's hand shook. Then police sirens sounded. Marcus spun. How? Ethan's eyes hardened. Because this time, I don't come alone. Marcus grabbed Clara. Ethan lunged. A gunshot exploded. Clara screamed. Ethan felt fire tear through his side, but he tackled Marcus to the ground. Police stormed in. Marcus was arrested. Clara crawled to Ethan sobbing. Stay with me. Ethan smiled weakly. I did. No, Ethan, don't you dare. He touched Hope's tiny face, then Clara's. I got my second chance, Clara cried. Then live it. Ethan's eyes fluttered. Darkness came again, but this time he was not alone. Ethan woke in a white room, not a hospital, not heaven, a place between. Across from him stood an old man he had never seen before. You changed much, the man said. Ethan looked down. His wound was gone. Am I dead? That depends. On what? On why you went back. Ethan clenched his fists. To fix my mistakes. The old man shook his head. At first, yes. But later? Ethan thought of Clara, Hope, the apartment, the dishes, the late nights, the tears, the forgiveness he had not deserved but had worked every day to honor. To love them properly, Ethan whispered. The old man smiled. Then choose. A door appeared. Through it, Ethan saw his first life, the hospital room, his older body, dead, alone. Then another door appeared. Clara at his bedside, Hope holding his finger, doctors fighting to save him. The old man said, one life is finished, one life is earned. But understand this, Ethan Vale, a second chance is not a reward, it is a responsibility. Ethan walked to the second door, without hesitation. When Ethan opened his eyes, Clara was beside him. Her face was pale, her eyes swollen from crying. Hope slept in Richard's arms nearby. Ethan whispered, You look terrible. Clara froze, then burst into tears. You idiot. He smiled. My idiot, she said, pressing her forehead to his hand. Years passed. Marcus went to prison. Vanessa testified against him for a reduced sentence. Valetech survived, but Ethan changed its mission. No more chasing power. No more worshipping growth. He built the company with Clara beside him, giving employees time for family, mothers paid leave, fathers actual responsibility, and small businesses affordable tools. People called him a visionary. Ethan knew the truth. He was just a man who had seen the cost of becoming empty. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Ethan took Clara back to their old apartment building. It had been renovated, but the streets still smelled like rain. Clara laughed. Why here? Ethan held her hand. Because this is where my life began twice. She leaned against him. Do you ever miss the future you knew? Ethan looked at Hope running ahead, chasing pigeons, then at Clara, whose smile had become his home. No. Clara studied him. You really came back for me? Ethan shook his head. At first, I came back because I was afraid to die alone. He kissed her hand. Then I learned how to live for someone else. Clara's eyes softened. And was it worth it? Ethan smiled. Every second. That night, Ethan opened the old notebook again. The list of mistakes was still there. But beneath it, he had written new words. Listen before speaking. Stay when it matters. Love is not possession. Success without family is failure wearing a crown. A wife is not won once, she is chosen every day. Clara read the last line and smiled. You finally understand. Ethan closed the notebook. No, he said softly. I'm still learning. She rested her head on his shoulder. And this time, Ethan did not look toward tomorrow with fear, because he knew the truth now. A man could lose everything and still be rich. A man could gain the world and still be dead. But a man who was given a second chance and used it to love better could become worthy of the life he once destroyed.